The year was 1347. A fleet of ships arrived in Sicily, carrying a passenger that would rewrite human history. Within 5 years, 50 million people were dead. We talk about the Black Death as a ghost of the past, a shadow from the Dark Ages that eventually vanished into the mist of time. But what if I told you it never actually left? The bacterium responsible for the greatest catastrophe in human history is still alive, still circulating, and still waiting. It is hidden in the wild, and it is much closer than you think today. We uncover the secret modern life of the world's most infamous killer. Here begins the story of survival and the predator that never left. In the 14th century, Europe was not just facing a disease, it was facing what many believed to be the end of the world. Chroniclers of the time described a terror so profound that fathers abandoned their children and priests refused to hear the final confessions of the dying. The bacterium responsible was called Yersinia pestis. It traveled along the Silk Road, hidden on the backs of fleas and the rodents they infested. In some cities, the death rate reached 60%. This was not simply a health crisis, it was a collapse of society itself. Labor became scarce, the feudal system began to crack, and the authority of the church was shaken to its core. Historians estimate that it took nearly 200 years for the population of Europe to recover. But while the bodies were buried, the pathogen itself was not gone. It had simply retreated into the shadows. This was not a disappearance, it was a tactical withdrawal. The question is, where did it go when the city stopped burning? To answer that, we must look closer at the biology of the organism itself, because Yersinia pestis is a master of adaptation, a survivor that has endured for thousands of years by hiding in plain sight. To understand why the Black Death was so effective, we have to look at the biology of a killer. Yersinia pestis is a master of manipulation. When it enters a flea, it creates a physical blockage in the insect gut. The starving flea becomes desperate, biting anything it can find and vomiting the bacteria into the host bloodstream. In the medieval world, black rats lived in close proximity to humans, in their thatched roofs, their grain stores, and their beds. When the rats died, the fleas jumped to the nearest warm body, which was usually a person. But what makes this bacterium so resilient? It is not just its lethality, it is its ability to hide. Yersinia pestis can survive for weeks in the soil, or within the complex burrows of wild rodents, waiting for the right conditions to strike again. It does not need humans to survive. We are merely accidental victims in a cycle that has existed for millennia. This biological independence is exactly why the plague never truly went extinct. It simply waited for the next opportunity to jump from the wild back into our world. By the late 17th century, the great outbreaks of plague in Europe began to fade. One of the last major catastrophes was the Great Plague of London in 1665. But an important question remained: why did it stop? For centuries, many believed the plague had simply burned itself out or that humans had slowly developed immunity. But modern research suggests something far more complex. Cities themselves began to change. Houses that were once built from wood and thatch were gradually replaced with brick and stone. These changes pushed rats further away from human living spaces. Even the arrival of a new species, the brown rat, played a role. Unlike the black rat, which thrived inside human homes, the brown rat preferred to remain hidden and distant. But the most important factor was ecological. The plague did not disappear. It simply moved. It retreated from the crowded cities of Europe back into its natural reservoirs, into the grasslands of Central Asia, into the mountains of the Americas. While human deaths declined, the bacterium continued to survive in the wild. The threat was never truly gone. It was simply no longer our neighbor, but in the modern world, that distance may be far smaller than we imagine. Today, the Black Death no longer lives in crowded cities. It lives in the wild. Scientists describe this as an enzootic cycle, a stable network of wildlife that carries the bacterium without collapsing. In these ecosystems, the disease quietly survives. In the United States, it lingers in the grasslands of the West. Prairie dogs, ground squirrels, and other small mammals act as hosts for the bacterium. Even hikers in places like the Grand Canyon are warned not to feed the wildlife for this reason. In other parts of the world, the plague remains a seasonal reality. Madagascar and the Democratic Republic of the Congo still report outbreaks. Each year, between 300 and 600 cases are officially reported to the World Health Organization. It is a sobering thought. The same pathogen that devastated the medieval world is still alive today, breathing, multiplying, and evolving inside the burrows of wild animals. We often imagine global health as a steady march of progress, but the presence of these natural reservoirs raises an unsettling question. Are we still at risk? The bacterium is still there, and the fleas are still biting. The geography of the plague has changed, but its lethality has not to understand the real danger. We must examine what happens when the disease finally reaches a human host. Because not all forms of plague are the same. The plague exists in three forms: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic. Bubonic plague causes the swollen lymph nodes known as buboes. If the infection reaches the bloodstream, it becomes septicemic, turning tissue black from necrosis. But the most dangerous form is pneumonic plague, which infects the lungs and spreads through the air from person to person. Without rapid treatment, its fatality rate can approach 100%. This airborne form is the scenario that concerns epidemiologists the most. The reason the Black Death no longer terrifies the modern world is largely due to antibiotics. Today, drugs like streptomycin and gentamicin can treat plague infections when caught early. Improved sanitation and global surveillance have also reduced the risk of large outbreaks. However, the bacterium Yersinia pestis still exists in nature, and antibiotic-resistant strains have already appeared in some regions. The plague may be controlled, but it has never truly disappeared. The Black Death is a reminder that the forces of nature are never truly defeated, only managed. It remains a silent passenger in our modern world, hidden within the ecosystems we share. If you found this journey into history's darkest corners fascinating, make sure to subscribe to Dark Ages Reborn and hit the notification bell. We will be diving deeper into the events that shaped our world. Thank you for watching, and stay curious.